Hello and welcome to the Woodridge podcast series. I'm David, or Dave if you prefer, from audioprojectcentral.com, and I'm proudly hosting this series which has the goal of bringing you informative and uplifting character profiles of some of the teachers, staff members and students at the school. The guest for this episode is Mr. Jacques Botha, who is Woodridge College's Deputy Headmaster. The interview kicks off with Mr. Botha telling us a bit about the journey that took him to Woodridge and about his role there. Please remember to press the like button on whichever platform you are using to access this episode, and do share the episodes on your social media with your friends and family. You can find out more about Woodridge by visiting www.woodridge.co.za, and you can pop in at the Woodridge College and Preparatory School Facebook page too.
I left school with the intention immediately to teach, qualified BSc and diploma to be a maths and science teacher, taught for a couple of years in Queenstown, and then went back to my old school, Muir College, which is just down the road. So I pretty much stayed in the area. I had a good relationship with educators from all around, especially in the city and the border area as well. When I started looking for an opportunity within the private sector, Woodridge was an obvious place. Fortunately, something came up. I made the decision to move out this way. And whenever people ask, how's it going? It's always a bit of a loaded question in the sense that they're asking how the job's going. But I moved here with my family, my wife, my 3 children. That stage, the youngest was a few months old. It was very much a family picture of how it was going. Whenever they'd ask, it was immediately I'd picture how the wife's going, how the children are, how they're enjoying the environment, how Rachel was enjoying play school at the time. And that's been pretty much the journey that we've been here as a family unit. The children have had the opportunity to be on a wonderful campus and just had a great experience at school. And my current role is the Deputy Headmaster of the college. Came here as a science teacher, science and maths teacher. Pretty soon moved into a more pastoral role as a grade head and academic director. And the last few years I've been the Deputy Head.
The theme of family comes up quite often in different responses from participants here. What's it like having a daughter as Deputy Head Girl?
Your son has got more insight than what you would normally have had, which can be a positive. It can preempt maybe an idea, but also maybe gives one a picture of what's going on in the pupil group as a whole. But that said, there's quite a big separation and there's a lot of things that I wouldn't know about. I think there's some clear lines that would separate, like church and state in a sense. But there are times when you're answering questions in the evening as a dad as well as a deputy head. Dad, what do you think about this? I'm faced with this scenario. I need to deal with something that's come up. And any parent would give input, and that's fair. 17-year-old needs input from their parents. But then at the same time, your input is coming partly with maybe the deputy head cap is also, or just the educator cap is there. My wife's also a teacher. So both of us come from an educational perspective of any questions that might come up. It's been wonderful, wonderful privilege seeing my children at school. And obviously very few parents have that. So it comes from when I was teaching in a classroom that they had to pass on their way to lunch. And when they came past for their early lunch, they would often just sort of hop up and wave other side of the window. I'd see them as 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, or 10-year-olds when they were in the primary school and they start playing sport and that. And I was often on campus and I could just pop across and see what was happening. I remember the first time my son got a plate for 13 days as an under 11. It was a late change. And the guys on that side made sure that I said, listen, if you're free, just come down at this time. The game's about to start. Get his first run on. That's special. So I think, there is a bit of, at times it feels like we're all involved in the same place, but there's real advantages as well. So I think there's lots of treasured memories from that perspective.
So your literal and figurative family is at Woodridge. So I wonder how hard you found this question, the question about, is there anything about you that no one there knows about you and that you'd be happy to tell people? Because I imagine that most people know pretty much everything about you there.
Yeah, I think so. But when I read that question, I thought, there's a saying that one of the leadership writers, John Maxwell, speaks about 5 levels of leadership. And his picture is you might be a level 5 leader, maybe the leader of a big church or organization, a business or something, and you've led by example and your ideas are great and everything. His lesson is that when the new person walks into that church, for instance, or that business, you're back at level one because they don't know you and they don't know what you've done and they don't know where you've come from. That sort of stuck with me from a leadership perspective, that you need to keep on looking at your influence and not sort of standing still. But also, I think just realizing that as time passes, what maybe was my involvement 10 years ago is forgotten. Parents change, people's change. And it's hard to believe 10 years ago we were on a Serbian water polo tour. There we were taking a group across and learning from the world's best in a sense. I just won Olympic gold. Even things that I think are quite recent. I've done a few half Ironmen and Ironmen, but I haven't done them for 3 or 4 years. So you realize that maybe a certain era would be, he's off on his bike or whatever, and that might not be as much part of the picture. I think it's probably a good lesson for life in general. You see people in a certain time frame, in a certain period of their life, and you don't know the full richness of what their life has been at different times. Just to subtly change my involvement, I no longer coached provincial hockey sides, but I've remained a selector. I think with the church, I remained involved in some areas, but not in other areas. So I try to prioritize my time towards the family. So if you knew me before that time, it's, you did X, Y, Z, but if you knew me a couple of years later, you say, you only does X. I think that's probably my slightly loaded answer in terms of, I suspect there are things people don't know about me, but some would.
You've mentioned the Serbian water polo tour. I didn't expect that. Is that a highlight? And are there any others that stand out?
Yeah, from a schooling perspective, that was. It was tense in a sense. I've been on a hockey tour at my previous school many years, 18 years ago now, which was also a revelation about just education in another part of the world. But the Serbian trip was something which I put together. Another staff member joined me, and a lot of lessons about setting up a tour, about the mechanics. I had 2 probably sleepless nights before it, where something came up in the afternoon that I went, oh no, this can't be solved. This document will never arrive. And fortunately, the Bundu Bashers cried, jump in, and they go, no, listen, we've got a plan for that. We can help you out. So I think that was, this exposure to a different culture. So I still had quite a soft spot when I watched the Olympics or Novak Djokovic or those guys, just picturing another culture that I would never have been exposed to, and how they see the world and how certain things in history are quite etched in their memories. There's many highlights in terms of what I've been able to be part of here. Personally, I've done some activities that I might not have done because of the opportunities that had arisen. I've done a quadrathlon with the kids at some point. We did an adventure race. But also, getting going onto some of the sport tours that have become just part and parcel of what we do now. My first year here, me and a young rugby coach went off with under 14 hockey and rugby guys to York to play 2 fixtures there. From that, we've developed a wonderful derby with them. That takes place every year. We play around 30 fixtures, and it's a very even contest. We walk away with the share of the spoil, so to speak. And it's a good trip. Not that far away, but a little bit down the road. And some of our pupils come from that area. So if I look back, that is a real highlight now. And I probably really look forward to those trips and seeing those staff. Some of them I've known since our 3rd year or 2nd year of teaching, that I've met at different festivals. So and this year we went to a very depleted kind of trip with the COVID restrictions. But I was thoroughly pleased that I made that 800-kilometer drive to at least see some of the games and see half a game of rugby and half a game of first team netball and just be part of that.
So a more motivationally focused question now. When the going gets tough or you find yourself in the proverbial deep end, do you have any tricks up your sleeve for getting out of the deep end or easing the situation? I
read that and what came to mind was that it was saying, tough times don't last, tough people do. And I think it's an ongoing process to grow yourself. And I think what I have learned is to take things slower, to not respond immediately, to listen, to gather some information, to consult. I think people don't always realize that, how much one consults your senior colleagues, people that you think have got a bit of an insight in a general sense or even a specific sense. They might know that family or that pupil or that colleague a little bit differently. I think I often lean on others. And then one needs a sense of context. In one stage, I was in a Bible study with people from different walks of life, policemen, psychologists, optometrists, banker, medical rep. And then you come from your teaching environment where certain things are vitally important and they've dominated the day. And then you hear other concerns, other demands on people's times. And you see your own life in a different context, perhaps. And you go, well, maybe I need to just see that slightly differently. back in 2017, our school burnt out, you'll know, and our family home also burnt with that. So,
did you lose possessions?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much a complete loss. Odd things, I was in an acting position at the time, so my old office still had my one guitar in it. So that was a bit of a save. And it took a while to realize, hang on, there might be something there. And I left it there after an evening church service here, I think. But at the time, so we lost our home and pretty much all our possessions. Fortunately, had things like laptops, and kids had packed their books for the next day when we evacuated. But we moved 30 k's down the road to my folks' house in Newton for a couple of nights, and then someone made available a house in Jeffreys for us to stay in, a holiday home, and just recouped from there. But at the time, was the Syrian refugee crisis was at its height, and so you go, well, it's a big thing, and we have to work through it as a family. But we've literally moved 30 k's, and we've got people around us who can support us, and we're not traveling hundreds and hundreds of kilometers with a little backpack with complete uncertainty as to the future. So I think context is vital as to see where things really fit in.
Jacques, clearly Woodridge has added huge value in your own life over a long period of time. How would you say it adds value to the lives of other guardians and parents who aren't, like you, based on site?
The word that always comes to my mind is opportunities. And opportunities, of course, can be taken or they can be left. And I think Woodridge presents any pupil with a tremendous amount of opportunities. You might have this thing of, what are the guys going to do in the afternoon? Where there's a whole bunch of people saying, I've only got one afternoon. How am I going to fit in all the stuff that's available for me? Being a smaller school, one's opportunities are often multiplied. Every school has an A team in a certain age group. But if you're in a bigger school, there's also only one A team, and that A team gets to go on a tour, for instance. So in a smaller school, more of you get to go on a tour. More of you get to be in the band or to sing on stage or to be part of the play. A greater proportion of pupils get that opportunity. So I think that's really what parents can gain from that, knowing that their children have got a number of opportunities at their fingertips. And of course, the staff that go with that to encourage, to support, to guide, to present those opportunities.
And that brings us to the end of the interview. Thanks for listening, and please do remember to share the episodes and relevant social media posts with your friends and family, and like the episodes at whichever social media platform you found them on. If you have any follow-up questions, head over to www.woodridge.co.za, where you will find the contact details for the school, and you can contact me at www.audioprojectcentral.com.